I have said it all season long, so it's only fitting on our first live show, our first post Super Bowl show, our first like grand finale. Like we made it. We went from the XFL preview show was our first ever show to the Super Bowl being the kind of end of the finale of our season. We're going to continue on, but this was a fantastic night to wrap up. What a fantastic night to wrap up on in terms of football content this week. Now, I'll mention the XFL potentially working with him going forward, but what a Super Bowl that was. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be in the prop market. And it's a good thing because during the duration, I had some up and downs in our lineup, which we're about to review as I bring in Donnie and Gov here in just a second. But we just unfortunately did not cash any of our DraftKings lineups, but that's why I said it from day one. You want to diversify your portfolio. Make sure you have, things spread out. We did a prop show. We did a showdown show. If you came in all eggs in one basket, I think this was the wrong Super Bowl to play that approach. And I think it showed through because some of the stuff that we thought was going to, happen tonight did not happen. So without further ado, I'll bring in Donnie and Gov. How are we doing, guys?
Amazing. What a Super Bowl. What a game.
Was definitely a good game. Definitely one of the better Super Bowl games I've seen in the last few years.
And I want to say, Gov, it wasn't just like a high scoring game making it good. It was a good offensive game. Maybe you
It
can
was clean.
that. Yeah, that's what I mean. Maybe
agreed.
You can articulate that better. But like, it wasn't just like, oh, there's points being scored. It was efficiency.
There wasn't much like, oh, well, this didn't work. I mean, I want to point out once again, outside of like Jalen Hurts, unders reign supreme. Like always, it seems like that Eagles rush game is so disappointing. Outside of Jalen Hurts, man, wow.
Well, that's the only Eagle I pretty much had in all my DraftKings lineups.
What a job by Jalen Hurts to come out here and do that. Not what I expected at all.
It's not.
He definitely balled out in this Super Bowl.
He did. It's not what I thought was. Well, I'll say it's the right game script, and you guys can look at how I built my lineups. I built them with a Jalen Hurts, KC heavy game. My problem was I thought we were going to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I had to make a quick pivot, and I actually did a mass pivot on my lineup, so it disqualified me in our contest because I told you it had to be a running back. But because I did a mass enter at the last second, it changed all my lineups. So my lineup in the three-man got disqualified for that reason because I went with Jody Forkson as a mass injury replacement for Clyde Edwards.
To be honest, I would have been fine with that. There was no running back pivot for you to really go to at Edwards-Helaire price.
I just want to be fair to what we agreed on, though. So none of the lines end up cashing, but like,
can we see the finals on them?
What's that, Donnie?
Can we see the final scores on them, where they placed?
Oh yeah, of course. And while I do that, you guys can speak on anything you want to speak on, but these should be the. Well, let me just pull it up because there will still be all the lineups here. So this was the three lineups here. I believe Gov finished just ahead of me. No, I finished just ahead of Gov, but again, you would disqualify that.
Well, 0 points for Fortson. Personally, either way.
I was about to say I wouldn't have like it's showdown. You didn't. It's not like there was any positionality at all. I wouldn't have made like. I don't remember agreeing to that. That's just sort of something you said. People could only pivot to the same position.
Right.
And honestly, I wouldn't have abided by that if something would have happened in my stuff. I mean, like, I'm going to pivot to whoever I can at my price range.
Oh, yeah.
If that means I turn a running back into the defense.
No.
That's just what it is.
No, 100%. Like, for contest purposes, because I did enter these contests. I'm definitely going to make the smartest move. I'm just saying for the 3-man competition we had between the three of us, I'd be okay if you disqualified me.
No,
No.
as far as I'm concerned,
Either way,
you ended up
0
winning
points. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Like it would have been the same if you said, "Well, I just have to take the 0 from Clyde Edwards-Helaire and leave."
right, it's exactly the same. Like it
Yep.
might have been a different discussion had Forkson had 10
30
or,
points.
Or even like the 1.8 that the other punt plays had.
right. Because, like I mentioned, we're going to cover some of the sports. We're basketball fans, so at the end of the day, I'm still trying to make as much profit. And I just want to point out, as this keeps going up, more money than I thought. We didn't cash a single one of these lineups, but that's why you want to diversify your portfolio. That's why me and Gov went through all the profits. That's why I'm saying you should enter the free pools. You should, you should do all these things. Like anything you feel like you have an edge at, you should do. And honestly, I think that's why the Chiefs won. They had the slight edge and experience, and I think both teams played fantastic. The edge went to the experience. When the game mattered the most, the people who had been there showed up. Patrick did not have a good overall performance statistically, but when he needed to show up, he scrambled for a 50-yard, 40-yard rush. Like, that's what I mean. Stats don't even matter based on the performance to me.
I have never seen Mahomes play so efficiently. Like in the game, he let the game come to him. He didn't make the game be anything it didn't need to be. Like
that's perfectly said, Donnie. Maybe that's why you're going to be a sports broadcaster, and I'll probably be on the couch in 5 years. But I mean, that's exactly what it was. It wasn't a flashy statistical game, but it was so efficient. Like, I think as a football fan, as a person of authenticity with the game of football, I think there's just no other way to look at this game and be like, it was one of the best games. And really, the referees didn't get in the way. There was no tomfoolery. I even liked the halftime show. The halftime show was literally just a music performance. It wasn't like
it was classy.
Yeah,
it was chill. Wasn't special,
but that
wasn't super memorable.
Like, no, but Donnie, personally, that's what I like. You're there to put on a music performance, and that's what she did. They were put on the best efficient football performance, and we saw what number 1 and number 2 offensively this year put on exactly that. I think no matter what side of the game you're on, we could talk the merits of the penalty later on, but to me that was a hold. But even if you think it wasn't, like, you can't argue that it was a bad call.
Well, here's my thing. I think the hold is there. It's enough to call the hold, and I think they missed a roughing the passer on that same play.
That's what I thought they had called, to be honest with you.
I thought it was a roughing the passer. I was fine. Either way, I'm fine with the call because either way, it's the same thing. It's a first down.
Yeah. Gov, what was your initial takeaways?
Mahomes is probably the GOAT, like I was saying. Unfortunately, but yeah, like it is like I told you guys, if he wins, he's MVP. Wins the MVP. Like, it's the narrative they want, and it's going to be hard to not say like it's Mahomes versus the field every year. People have already been saying that, but now it's like definite. Philly played really well. Jalen Hurts.
Those QB sneaks, man. That has to be the most unstoppable thing in football right now. The way
it reminds me of Cam in the red zone. Like, he's scoring a touchdown that one year. Like, that was like the 2015 Cam, where it's like, he's scoring the touchdown.
It was better, though. Like,
I don't think it was better. Like, I didn't see anything different.
Can I do a mashup here? Because I feel like what a lot of people are going to do is they'll give you their initial reaction to the Super Bowl, and then they'll do forecasting, and then they'll kind of flip-flop. But while I got you guys in the raw, the emotions haven't settled. I feel like playing a quick game of like just what's more likely to happen is kind of an interesting way to open up some of these conversations. Who do you think comes back to a Super Bowl first or at all? Travis Kelce or Jalen Hurts?
Travis, man. I don't know how you can look at this Chiefs team and what they've accomplished in the last half decade and say they won't be back in the next 2-3 years.
I guess
And they're young. That's
The-
the craziest part.
but they're not that young when you look at Travis Kelce. Like,
But the receiving core is what I mean.
But the
They're
receiving
DBs.
core is like, okay, they're young, but like this was supposed to be their rebuild year. This is not as good of a team as they've had. They were pulled forward by Mahomes.
See, I disagree.
And I would say, like, other than the receiving core, they're not very young. Like, they're not super young on defense. They don't really have a young offensive line. Like,
but they're still like at the peak of their career. Nobody should be regressing this year.
The offensive line might take a step back next year if they don't add something to it. I'll give you the receiving core is probably going to take a step forward because it's a bunch of young guys.
I think their linebacker core goes forward, Bolton and Gay, and
yeah, the linebacker core is probably the only part that moves forward, though. I don't like the secondary wasn't young and the defensive line wasn't like the trenches is going to start going bad for them in the next 2 years. That's the one thing that could screw them up. Like they weren't great stopping the run. You saw that. Like that's going to end up hurting them in the future.
Let's take a timeout. They weren't great stopping Jalen Hurts at the run, but nobody was.
They weren't great all year stopping running backs.
They weren't.
ETN was gashing them with the Jags. Like,
but when
that will come back to haunt them later. Like it didn't this year. Mahomes was able to get them over that. But those are the signs of a defense that's about to take its big step back, unless they just completely overhaul it 1 year. Like maybe they take this year and their entire draft class and free agency and focus all on defense. Tell Mahomes, hey, we can't get you a Tyreek. We can't get you any weapons. You just got to do it. Like, no, they wouldn't be able to go and do that. They'd need to go out and sign like Khalil Mack when he gets cut from the Chargers. That's what they'll need to spend their money on.
But
to like maybe to compete in my mind, they're going to need to go and get Ndamukong Suh from Philly right now and just solidify the interior of their defense. Like that's what Kansas City's going to need moving forward. It's the trenches that they're about to really get hurt on. And you saw the starts of that this year. Mahomes wasn't able to stay as healthy. Mm-hmm. They were not able to stop the run as well or get an interior pass rush.
I think you both are right. Like one of you is dealing with a dozen and the other one's dealing with a bigger dozen. And it just depends on how much you need and at what quantity. Because I agree with Gov's point. In totality, they are not young. And they were supposed to be rebuilding. But to Donnie's point, they're young at the strongest position in football. Patrick Mahomes is in his prime.
Yeah, that helps. I don't know how that contract will affect, but like they might have it planned out where they'll be okay.
I also want to just say, I don't think Mahomes was the MVP of the Super Bowl. I would have handed it to Nick Bolton. 8 tackles, 9 total, 8 solos, 9 total, forced fumble, touchdown. I mean, almost had a second touchdown. Obviously,
if he gets the second touchdown, then you have to give it to him. No, you don't have to give it to him. You definitely don't have to give it to him.
I think 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns that are random and a dude who didn't even lead the team in tackles.
Yes, he did. I'm pretty sure he. I'll pull it up right now.
8's not a big number. I was gonna say, I know linebackers that I know linebackers who said.
The next closest was 6.
Kansas City?
Yeah, on Kansas City.
Okay. What about Philly? Did Philly have a guy who had more than 8 tackles?
Philly's top tackle guy. Philly's top tackle guy was also 6 with Avonte Maddox.
Okay, so like I said, if he gets the second touchdown, he has the argument. But it's really hard to give a defensive guy a touchdown who's not
it's a quarterback award.
Yeah. Well, it's an offensive award, really. It's not just a quarterback award, but like no other offensive player like broke out other than the 2 quarterbacks. So it would have gone to Hurts if Philly won, and it had to go to Mahomes if Kansas City won.
It had to go to Hurts if Philly won, because what a game by that man. That was I will not forget this Hurts performance because I didn't know if he could do it. Honestly, I've questioned Hurts for a long time, and I'm going to regret that because I was completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what I want to do though, because I think this would be a good way to break this down. Let's look at our lineups and see what we got right, what the lineup says, and then like, were there just unlucky points in the game? Was this like something we didn't see coming? And then we can kind of broaden that out to the game, because I do think this game was truly like one of the best representations of like good quality NFL football we're ever gonna see. But I could see like the casuals saying like, "Oh, this wasn't a good game," or there wasn't any defining moments. It's because I don't think this game ebbed and flowed at all. Like this game was just concurrently great, and I think if you're a football fan, you appreciated it. But I think for like the casuals, they don't realize the consistency at which these two teams played at was at such an absurd level that I just don't think it will get the appreciation.
Well, I will say, I had a friend text me, and she said, "I need to start watching football more often. This is very fun." Like that's exactly what the point I think you're trying to make is. This looked so great to the casual fan.
See, but I'd almost argue opposite though. Like it was such a great game. There was no miracle on ice moment though, Donnie. There was no like, oh my God, the comeback, or oh my God, this 80-yard pass hadn't happened. Like it was so fluid. Like even the slide down by McKinnon to like waste the last minute and 40 was such a smart, efficient football, savvy move that if you're a casual just like playing board games with your family, you might have missed the nuance, which is fine. I don't think every Super Bowl has to be the same. I just want to give this one its due. I truly think this might be the most efficient Super Bowl of my lifetime.
I just want to say back to the Super Bowl MVP thing. I was just curious because I know Malcolm Smith won it not too long ago. He had 9 total tackles. 5 of them were solo. He had the interception and it went for a touchdown. So a very similar game. Russell Wilson that game also had 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I think it's close. But
I actually
that was also a much closer, lower scoring game.
Yeah. Right.
Where the one defensive touchdown really made the difference.
Well, no, that's the Seahawks Super Bowl. That's the Seahawks Super Bowl where it was 43-8.
Oh, I thought it was the Seahawks Super Bowl against the Patriots, not the one where they blew out Denver.
No, this is the one they blew out Denver.
Oh, no, yeah, okay. The one they blew out Denver, like, that was won by the defense. Like, that one's a clear blowout. Like, that's where, like, okay, the defense probably was what won it. Who's the best defensive player?
Well, you could make this argument, too. But I actually agree with Donnie that if Bolton would have got the second touchdown, it would have been his, just on the perception. But the merit, to Gov's point, I think Mahomes would have put up those gaudy numbers had the defense not just been so bad. Like, Jalen Hurts controlled that game like he was a Olympic figure skater, like truly just dancing around the defense. The defense, as much as they made big plays for the Chiefs, like big splash plays, like they were the fat boys doing the cannonball, disrupting big waves in the pool. But for most of the time, they were also the kid peeing in the pool, and no girls wanted to be around them. Like there was times it wasn't a good defensive performance. So I can see arguments on both sides of that.
So back to the lineups. I mean, personally with my lineup, I know we're on it right now. I mean, all these plays.
Not having Hurts. How did we forget to have you not have Hurts?
I thought it was. I was completely wrong. I picked the wrong quarterback. If I put Hurts where Mahomes is, this lineup is amazing. I mean, but there was that one punt return that was so close to a touchdown. It's defense and special teams, if I'm not mistaken. So that would sway this so much on my side.
Yeah, like not too either one of those touchdowns.
It takes away a touchdown from Tony, and then also gives the defensive touchdown.
Not to mention, Donnie, you were one broken tackle away from a Pacheco long touchdown.
Right.
And that touchdown would have also been over 100 yards. Like when we're talking showdown, the 100-yard bonus it's just as good as a touchdown swing.
And almost 2 defensive touchdowns this game as well. I mean, this I feel really good with how this lineup is, even though it was not great, like placing wise.
So the fun part is that me and Gov were listening to one. I'll give you the number one lineup, which is funny because if you correlated all of our lineups, I think we pretty much would have came up with something very similar.
We probably have Brown, Mahomes, Hurts, and maybe Kansas City.
If you go and Hurts at captain, I would have had two of his receivers. So having Brown and Smith makes sense. We might have had Goddard instead of Smith.
And you guys know I like to go dumpster diving. So if it went Hurts, I'm not.
We would have put Forts in there. We would have put Forts in there.
I was about to say that's interesting. All his only two Chiefs were Mahomes, and then the defense.
And
he didn't take a running back. He didn't take one of Mahomes' receivers to correlate. He didn't take the kicker. He took the defense.
Faded Kelsey, but the Chiefs won, and this lineup still is first.
So hold
which is
on though.
impressive.
Like let's put away the 575. Let's say this is 50 cents or even 5 cents. Like we'll give them a win here. But was this a smart lineup?
I think if you have both quarterbacks, I love the defensive play. You correlated.
I feel okay. I already know from when we built. I would have probably had this lineup if I was doing Hurts captains, which I didn't, which capped my ability to win today. I could see building this, but I would have had Sky Moore instead of the Chiefs defense for 3K and just
which still gives you good points,
right? Like actually, I think that
it gives you more.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, like that was not even the most optimal. Like thinking about it that way, like I could have built a better lineup than that.
And then you get off you take the extra money and you get off of Zach Pascal.
You turn Pascal into Watkins.
You probably
which was basically the same score, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, 1.8. So you actually would have lost a point and a half, but you would have gained. Let's see. Sky Moore was like 12 on top of the 6.
Yeah, I know he had
so
one touch.
You would have gained 6 and lost 2. So it still would have been 4 points better.
I mean, I almost played Sky Moore, so I mean,
yep.
But only one catch. I mean, it just happened to be the touchdown.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we saw McKinnon break one big play in the beginning of that game. I want to say for like 20 yards. So but he only finishes with like 34 receiving yards. So that's what Showdown's going to do. It's big splash plays. It's the fat kid, doing the cannonball. That's what it is.
I want to say there's one thing that really shocked me about the Super Bowl. I thought there'd be more screenplays from Kansas City side. There wasn't that many screenplays, and they were still so uber efficient with it.
Well, let's also not forget, Donnie, that they called a Dallas Goedert long third down conversion. You got the yards for that, right? You take those away, that's a minus 30. Remember, Gainwell was down at the 1, and that turned into a Hurts touchdown.
Yep.
That's a Gainwell touchdown. This game goes totally different. So, that's the nature of a showdown. And again, I'll go back to my number one advice because it is literally my number one advice. I know we don't pull that much concurrent viewership, and that's part of the reason we're doing live shows and we sacrifice our time in this manner. But I've been saying it all along. I'll continue to say it until I'm probably dead. Diversify your portfolios. Do it. Anything you do, make sure it correlates. Correlate everything you do in life. So, if you're going to be a sports bettor, bet on all kinds of sports. Don't just I'm an NFL guy. This is my favorite team, so I'm only going to bet futures on the Kansas City Chiefs. Diversify your portfolio because you could be so close and just get unlucky, or you can get lucky by putting yourself in the right position. So, it works both ways.
I mean, if you go through all of our lineups, would you say when we look at it, is there any bad plays? In a sense, I don't think outside of Fortson, I don't think there was many.
But you got to realize,
and Fortson was minimum salary,
so right? So it's a fair punt.
If it lets you fit in everything, it exactly. You weren't expecting more than the 1.8 that Quez Watkins got.
And let me tell you why he did it. I had heard that Noah Gray was going to be inactive.
Blake Bell ended up being inactive.
Speaking of which,
Right.
Noah Gray got himself a catch in the Super Bowl, which I got what I wanted. I was rooting for this guy the whole season. I root for him all the time. I'm happy to see him, be successful.
We'll have a larger show, and I'll pull up all my prop bets. And then, if you guys remember, we did that quick hitter. And so what we'll do is we'll play back. We'll almost do like a playback episode, but we'll play back some of my prop bets. We did a couple days ago with being Gov, and we can review that. We can do more lineup reviews, and we can also review these takes we had. But in the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes, however long we're going to stay on here, what do we need to talk about that we haven't yet? It could be lineup review. It could be like a strategy that worked that you hate. You could be a football take. Anything to tie a bow on this season. Like we got the draft, we got off season, we got all those times. But is there anything for sure we have to hit on?
I mean, I think every season's different and has their own. Like Kansas City looks so different this year. It didn't look the same. Tyreek Hill being gone. Anybody's a candidate to break out in the next year. So I don't think there's anything to take away and be like, we can use this consistently into the next season. Maybe to start off, but
Donnie, do you mind me getting a little bit more personal? Because I think it'd be just a great way to talk about things in just a fun, different way.
Go for it.
You mentioned your friend really getting into football because she was watching this game, and we appreciate football on most forums, especially me and Gov, who watched a lot of Showdown. So we know that one play can change things, or one play can spark your interest, or make you passionate one way or the other.
I remember the game that sparked my interest, still to this day.
Right. I mean, so how many football fans are what do you think it was about this game specifically that spoke to people? What do you think is going to be remembered?
This is the most fluid Super Bowl I think I've ever watched. Fluid and efficient. It was clean, not many calls from the refs, not many challenges. When there was challenges, it was expedited. Mm-hmm. Everything was so picture perfect and clean, it felt like.
It's a good way to put it. I would say even the challenges made sense. We didn't see the challenge, and then they tried to hurry up, but they're like, no, we didn't give them enough time to substitute. That made sense. People could hate that, but that's by the letter.
It's all with the rules. Everything had logically happened. There wasn't any bad decisions in this.
We had the big plays too. Actually, exactly. I remember. Do we know what the longest play this game was?
Really clean.
I think it was the Devontae Smith over the shoulder catch, was it not?
Probably.
Or was that the one they called back? I'm trying to remember.
No, there was a one at the sideline.
Right.
Devonta Smith had the one at the sideline. The one that they challenged that was on that play was a Dallas Goedert out of bounds catch.
Right. By the way, I have to mention this. If you were right about two big prop bets, you were trying to get me to bet the night that we did that. You told me to take the over on a field goal hitting the post. I didn't do it, and you said it would be a fun bet for the octopus. The octopus actually hit tonight.
I know.
Jalen Hurts got the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. He got the octopus. I believe if I would have put $1 on it, I think I would have won 20. So that tells you the odds. It was. But I did have the 2-point conversion. So trust me, I made plenty of money.
And with how aggressive those teams were, it was a thought. Because it's there will probably be a 2-point conversion. It's just, will it go to the same dude who scored the touchdown? That's a little tougher. But it was entirely viable in this Super Bowl. So what's up?
What do you guys think the most shocking thing about the Super Bowl was?
How many prop bets I won, to be honest with you. To truly look back at it and be this was an efficient celebration of football knowledge. I feel like if you watch the totality of this season and then you plugged it into this game, we got exactly what they said we were going to get. We got two really good offenses.
Mhm.
Two up. What's that, Gov?
No, I agree. Yeah, we
I mean,
got really efficient offenses, and
And
they played their games.
Two hyper aggressive coaches.
but that's what I'm saying. It was like we got the defensive games we expected, like high sack, high aggressive, like, pin your ears back defense.
Well,
like, they're not
Yep.
great defenses, but they pin their ears back. They get sacks. They make big plays. That's what we saw. Bolton made big plays.
When I look at the Super Bowl, the one thing that really pops out to me that is just it's always been a football rule. If you're the king of time of possession, you're probably winning the game.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles had 35 minutes and 47 seconds of possession. The Chiefs only had 24. To come out and win with that discrepancy, it just to me is very mind blowing. It speaks to the efficiency of a Kansas City offense.
But that's kind of our point though, Donnie, with Govern me is like, if you look at the numbers, there's no way Mahomes should be MVP. But the efficiency is exactly, by definition, my definition of MVP. Now, a lot of people look at MVP like stats. So even like to go broad picture here, like we could look at the NBA and be like, Giannis, Joker, who has the best stat line? And then people will say, well, it's the best team. And it's like, but at some point, efficiency should be a pretty good efficient, measurement or metric for these type of discussions.
It's just how often do we see a time of possession discrepancy like that, and you see the team on the lower side win the game? Go back to Super Bowl, was it 52?
Mm-hmm.
Patriots, Falcons. The big topic was the difference in the game is time of possession. The defense of the Falcons couldn't keep up after so long of being on the field. Right. That didn't look like an issue. I'm still mesmerized by the Super Bowl. It's one of my favorites ever.
And let's not forget, both of these quarterbacks were highly questionable with injuries. And I think they both were hurt. Even on the last plays of probably the most crucial plays of these games, the Patrick Mahomes, what was it, a 30-yard rush with a bump?
Something like that.
And then on the last play, Hurts loaded up and gave it everything he had on his bum shoulder after all those rushing attempts.
I think the ball was tipped at the line.
I didn't see it tipped at all.
Still, even if it wasn't, he's throwing it as hard as he can with a bum shoulder after taking all those runs, falling down. Both of these quarterbacks literally could not have given you anything more.
We saw Chris Jones jump on top of Hurts doing a QB sneak. These teams fought for every single inch.
And you probably saw the best push that wasn't like a weird offensive line, I'm going to pick up my running back and moving forward. Like Jalen Hurts had to give a second effort on a quarterback sneak.
Multiple times.
Impressive, right?
Yes. I think there was 2 or 3 of them that really was like, wow, he just got that.
And another thing I got to mention is, in a lot of these Super Bowls, you get the comic, what I would consider the graphic novel, or this graphic imagery of this big play. This guy comes out of nowhere, Mario Manningham, Terry Hip. Why am I blanking his name? Tyree catch.
Yeah, David Tyree. There was Chris Matthews from the Patriots, Seahawks. Yeah.
Or the one time, we don't see a quarterback and Edelman wins and that really ugly Rams pick. There's always these snap moments where you're like, oh, this. But this game was just fluid. It was just you couldn't. There was no fluky moment. There was no moment where I was like, oh my God, that was just 100% luck. I just felt like this was probably the most efficient game I've ever seen. So, okay, so let's do this. Let's take it from a different angle. But also, I feel like again, it'll just open up another way to talk about it. What's the headline tomorrow that's going to drive you guys nuts? Whether it's true or false, like what's the narrative that's like,
The
okay,
penalty at the end. That's got to be it. I mean, I think it was a good call.
how long did they talk about that for?
Eagles fans for the next 5 years, probably. National media, definitely,
A week. At
Yeah,
least.
definitely a week. Yeah.
But Gov, so when they talk about for a week, is it valid? Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. It's like, is the conversation a valid conversation?
I don't think
Probably
so.
not. No.
Yeah.
So why does the media do it?
Because that's what people want to hear. They want to hear the argument.
They got to have the controversy. They got to have the debate. They got to have something to talk
That's
about.
what I'm saying. Like,
Because the only other thing to talk about is going to be Mahomes.
That's exactly right, though. It's like we didn't get the Miracle on Ice Al Michaels call, like this big upset or the comeback or the Falcons Patriots, Julio Jones spectacular catch, Tom Brady's comeback, Tyree catch, Eli Manning coming out of nowhere being the Cinderella story. There was just none of that. It was exactly the type of game we expected, done to the highest efficiency possible. And so, like, it was probably the best game, but the most boring, like, ebbs and flows. And so I just feel like you guys are right. It's going to go down as, like, historically, statistically, one of the best, but, like, there's just no, like, casual, big-time moment in that game.
So do we want – I remember one of the things that we were talking about at the end of last show, like what we expected to happen. The longest play. I have what the longest play is, actually. There was a tie. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, I hit it right on the nose. Longest play was 45 yards. I think that's what I said in the show.
Yeah.
So this game, I did not expect the game to go like this, to be honest. I thought if it was going to be a shootout, the Chiefs would definitely win. And it didn't feel like the Chiefs had that game in hand. This is one of the few times, honestly, as a fan, I could watch a game and be like, I can't predict the next thing that's going to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen next.
I don't even know how to, like, I'm just sitting back and I'm trying to think, like, I don't even know when I thought anything about, like, you're right.
I was just enjoying football.
It was just a good game. There was no point in time that I even thought about who was going to win this game until the very end. And then it's like, oh, Mahomes is going to do what a good quarterback does, and he's going to get it down there, and they're going to take the knee and grind the clock.
Right.
I was the opposite, and Donnie can attest to this. I told him at halftime, I'm betting the Chiefs to win.
He did. It was plus 320, I think you said?
I got them at plus 320 to win at halftime.
See, but like when I sat back and I watched this game, now I think that's a good bet in general.
Yeah.
But I generally, when I'm watching a game, can say, okay, this game's going this team's way. But I felt like for most of the game it was going the Eagles' way. But the Chiefs always had their foot right in the door, ready to bust through.
Well, that's why I bet it, Donnie, because for me, like, one of the ways I like to sports bet, and I haven't been doing it that long because it hasn't been legal in Michigan for that long, is once the game starts, I try not to look at the scoreboard. Like, I try not to look at that and just go off of what you think the game was.
Right, the game flow.
Honestly, the game felt tied the whole way through.
It really did. I mean, even when it was at halftime, what was it? 24-14. I mean, I felt like Mahomes was playing so well. The offense felt like it was going so good. Man.
Well, to be honest,
even then, I didn't think Kansas City was out. I didn't think Philly had it in the bag.
Exactly.
No, it was great. I mean, this is what we wanted as fans. As unbiased fans going into this game, this was the perfect game.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. Like, even if you took the time off the clock and you blocked out the score with a piece of duct tape or just like didn't look at it, this game should have went to overtime. like neither team deserves to lose. I know that narrative gets thrown around a lot, but truly, you could have told me this game is going to overtime, and I would have been like, both teams deserve it. Yeah,
And-
for sure. I'm not going to argue that.
You know what I really loved about this game too? Both teams were forced out of their comfort zone offensively.
Right.
The Eagles had to throw the ball. Their running game and their running backs were not working. Their top running back was Gainwell with 7 for 21. The Chiefs, they only had 182 passing yards, and Kelsey only got 6 targets. If you told me going into this game that Kelsey gets 6 targets, I think they lose.
Yeah, I agreed.
But again, they didn't need to be 12 or 13 or 14 or whatever they were against the Jags because they were super efficient. They were super high, octane. Like, I'm going to save it for the biggest moment. I mean, he scraped one off of his shoelaces today. And then
that was an amazing catch.
Yeah, so he had one of the most amazing catches in this game, but then some of the more like boring.
Juju even looked fine. Like the receivers, Tony did good things. Like
Juju
everyone
looked really good.
looked good on Kansas City.
Sky Moore was moving.
You just saw what happened when like no one stood out. You didn't have a Tyreek Hill stand out. Even Kelsey didn't have a standout game, like you pointed out. But everyone did what they're supposed to do. Pacheco looked good. McKinnon was fine. Like everyone did what they were supposed to do, and it just worked. And when the defense was able to keep Philly in check a little bit and get that touchdown and almost the second one, like that's all it needed. And Philly was able to be like, okay, even with them doing everything they need, they put up a really good game on the other side, mostly through Jalen Hurts. Like, yes, A.J. Brown had a great game. Devonta Smith looked really good too.
Devonta Smith had 100 yards.
They will be very good, a very good team.
This offense will look pretty much the same, I think, next year, and it will be almost just as efficient next year, probably too.
Yeah.
I have everything pulled up in front of me. Devontae Smith had 9 targets. A.J. Brown had 8 targets. Goddard had 7. Yeah, like their stars all showed out for the Eagles, except their running game, which I'm so disappointed that we didn't.
And really, if you add Hurts's 3 touchdowns and 70 yards rushing to the running game, it kind of did.
Oh, yeah, especially when you think most of these are designed runs or QB sneaks,
It's all RPOs mostly.
Right,
Donnie, you got all the information in front of you, right?
Yes.
And you said it's okay to get personal? So for people that don't know, Donnie is working his way into sports broadcasting. What I want you to do, Donnie, for the last segment here is look at the numbers and put on your sports journalism kind of hat here. Tell us the numbers or some statistics that we need to hit on in the next 5 minutes that we haven't covered or we haven't covered enough. Is there anything we're missing?
So an interesting thing is for the Eagles, they only had 5 QB hits this whole game and 0 sacks. What a game by Kansas City's O-line.
That's part of the efficiency, and that was rare for them this year.
It was.
On the other end, Kansas City only had 2 sacks and 2 QB hits.
So really, the defenses didn't actually the trenches wasn't where this was won. It was sort of like who could just score more with their offenses, and Mahomes Mahomes didn't. There was a pick 6.
Right. There was the missed field goal as well.
But that was on Mahomes' side. So Mahomes, that's what I'm saying. Mahomes' side missed a field goal. They didn't score as much as Philly's offense did, but they were able to get a defensive score. And that's you take away 6 points, it's 32-35 Philly wins.
Right.
Don't forget the punt return either. That totally flipped.
The
that
longest
set up an
punt
easy
return
touchdown
in Super Bowl history. If you guys didn't know, that was the record. that was not hit on TV.
There's no way. Devin Hester had to have had one.
No,
that was longer.
65-yard punt return, longest in Super Bowl history.
See,
I guess his ones that were longer were kick returns.
Yup.
See, that's why Donnie's going to sports broadcasting school right there. Congratulations, buddy. Gov, you mentioned just missing Super Bowls and like them just not advantageously being on your timetable. Is there anything from this Super Bowl that we can take into the USFL or the XFL, or like, does that help those numbers? What does it tell you for next year? Anything from this current moment in the instant reaction, haven't given it much thought, your most raw moment, like, does it propel you to watch more football, less? Is it specifically NFL? Does it influence free agency, the draft? What happens for you going forward when you think about football now?
Like, initial thought, like,
truly, this game.
I don't know if it changes anything because I already really like football. It's not my favorite. NBA is really my favorite sport. But like
agree.
NFL has always been my second favorite sport. It's always been the sport I can
Yeah.
watch the most with my family. So I don't know if it actually changes what I was going to do. Because also, like, you know me, playing DFS all the time, I was going to play XFL.
Yeah, me and you both. I'm close. I'm trying to get a partnership deal. I'm close for the XFL too, just because there's so much unknown about that sport. If someone's willing to do the work, I feel like we can really drive our numbers.
And there will be big names, like I've heard, like Martavis Bryant, Josh Gordon,
Vic Beasley.
Yep, there will be some names that people will know.
Joe Horn's son's playing over there. Ben DiNucci is one of the quarterbacks who actually looked pretty good with the Cowboys, for a while. And like, I guess this Super Bowl is so efficient, guys, that we have to mention like the no-name Mario Manningham types, and we have to go to the XFL, the CFL to do it, because this game was just a high-profile guys, and but I guess that's what changed for me though, Gov. I knew a game like this was coming in part of my lifetime, but now we've seen efficiency on all sides. We probably saw one of the best officiated games, like where there was challenges, but everything was done with such a fluidity that we just have to give everyone credit. There was no snowballs on the field. There was no, they kept talking about how the field was like torn up. But like, to me,
it honestly wasn't a great field. I will say that. Like,
yeah,
like but Arizona's had that problem all year. That's something they need to address.
Right. And so it wasn't great, but both teams had to deal with it, and both teams knew about it. It wasn't like Ed Hockley is the referee, and you got to decide, is he going to affect the game or not?
Agreed.
That stadium had been the way it had been for a long time, and I don't think there was an edge, because if you did just a little bit of research, you knew what field you were going into. That would be like blaming, I didn't know the Super Bowl was in a dome. Well, you had 2 weeks, and guess what? There's a big balloon over the stadium. So guess what? It's in a dome. Like, to me, that was probably one of the more overblown topics on TV. I just want to mention that. Yeah, the field wasn't great, but like, we are playing an outdoor sport, historically. So I don't have anything else. If you guys did, it's fine, but I really don't. I just think it was a great game.
Me too. Like it's hard to take in everything.
It was so efficient. Yeah, it was so efficient.
It was.
Like, we talked about the high possibility of trick plays. That was not needed at all. This game was so good, perfect. Like, technically Kansas City did a little ring around the rosy, whatever. That's not a trick play in my eyes. That's just being silly. But the game was. You didn't need anything weird. This was peak football. I think
even
like
on
NFL
the goal
football
line,
was
they
at its
didn't.
peak.
Yeah, even on the goal line, they didn't run any kind of like weird motion. Like you pushed Hurts in 3 times.
Yeah, no play action. We're not going to boot like if we're on the one. We're just going to take our big quarterback and he's going to fall forward. You know.
Yep.
My mom's not a casual, but she doesn't like watch a lot of national games. She'll like watch regional games. Like she'll watch the NFC North. You know, she knows like Kirk Cousins and like Harrison. Harrison Smith, but she doesn't. This might have been like the only third time she's ever seen Jalen Hurts, and tonight she was like, he's a running quarterback. He runs a lot, but he runs different and he runs very efficiently. And and I think that's what the sneak has become though, Donnie. I think people would in some era would have been like, oh, that's a sneaky play, or that's a trick play. It might just become the right play, So
yeah,
maybe
it was the most insightful play in football this year.
Yeah, but I'm saying like maybe
for the Eagles standard.
Well, think about even like how the Chiefs got open, so we're fair to both sides. Like some people a couple of years ago would have said, "Oh, those jet sweeps, those are trick plays." But now it's just like misdirection and like smart to get your best players the ball, or like the best players threaten to get the ball. And so maybe maybe our definition of trick play has just changed, or I truly think our standard of football has changed tonight. Like historically, revolutionary. I'm willing to say this.
Agree.
In the moment, I think the standard of quality, excellence, football, high school, college, tonight is an elevator. Tonight the elevator went up, and if it goes down, it would be catastrophic. I'll say that.
This was peak NFL. In my opinion, this was the best the NFL looks.
Yeah, and I think that's good for all sports. It's almost like that monopoly effect when you look at something like EA Sports with football. You don't want a company to have a monopoly. You want a Folgers and a Maxwell House. You want a Pepsi and a Coca-Cola. I think a game like this, going into some of these summer leagues when they branch out. We saw the NFL expand the wild card coverage, and then the NBA goes to a playoff. Whenever there's a moment of change, but that change elevates your game, it elevates your competition in a healthy way too. I think it's a win-win for football, like not even just the NFL.
You know what else I think made the game feel better?
What's that?
No real injury. Mahomes had his ankle tweak, but we knew he was hurt.
Sanders got
and
hurt,
then Pacheco went out
but he did come back, but then he never really played the rest of the game.
Right. And Pacheco got the wind knocked out of him.
But then he came back and still looked okay. So
right.
no one was ever declared out in this game.
Which I think is very, fun as well. It was there was nothing that made the NFL look bad.
Do you think that it was due to the Super Bowl being pushed back? Because both teams had a lot of injuries. And I know it was the same duration, but later in the year, I don't know. I'm not saying it had anything to do with it, but I do think because it was so new, it was definitely needed. I'm glad that they do it the way they do it and don't change it. But I don't know. Maybe that speaks also just to its consistency. Maybe it didn't change anything, but it was appreciated that you give these guys 2 weeks off. Because if these guys had played in a week, the game would not have been as good. And I'm not even saying that from the Chiefs' perspective. Jalen Hurts was legit hurt too, Sanders, there's a reason Sanders wasn't touching the ball as much. And I don't think it's because Kenneth Gainwell is that much better than him. I think he was legit kind of nursed along the way. So if anything, we should appreciate that these guys get 2 weeks off. I'll say it that way.
If they had to play in a week's time, I think that would make a huge difference. The week off is very important. But that's that's always been a thing for me anyway. I don't know if that wasn't a thing a long time ago, just because I didn't pay attention. But
so we've been super efficient ourselves. We're just under an hour. Is there anything else we need to hit in the next 5 minutes?
I mean,
I'm trying to think. Not off the top of my
I
head.
could. This game was so incredible. I'm going to go to bed happy tonight. I think everyone but Eagles fans are going to go to bed happy tonight. Man.
And even they are going to be really good next year. So
let me just say this kind of as a fun but serious note. DraftKings is doing an extremely good job of paying things out, and that's why I'm extremely happy. Because when I started this podcast, I was at one number, and every time I refreshed, I've been at a different number. But they were super transparent in the sportsbook today. They said they took a stupid amount of bets, a crazy amount of bets. Guys, you gotta realize that the sportsbooks take the most money of anything they're ever gonna place on tonight. The Super Bowl is the highest rated betting event, period. Poker, sport, doesn't matter. So be patient. Me and Gov talked about this with our prop bets. People were getting kind of crazy with their demands and giving me my money back and all this, be patient with your sportsbook, especially be grateful we don't got to bet offshore anymore and we don't got to do this shady stuff in weird casinos in the middle of nowhere. Just be patient with people. They're trying their best. And if they do make a mistake, I'll tell you this, DraftKings has some of the best customer service there is out there. Bar none, doesn't matter. Could be a food company, a gas company, or your neighbor on the street. They have the best customer service I've ever experienced. Be patient. Talking about patience, I want to get these guys to sleep. They were patient with me tonight, so I wanted to pay the favor. Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed the Super Bowl. It was real. Oh, final note. Rihanna? Question mark.
Was it bad?
Dude. Oh. I thought it was great because it was music, and that's what we got. We got music.
It was okay. It wasn't memorable. It was serviceable. It did its job.
Did she look pregnant again?
That's what my mom thought.
She is pregnant again.
I saw a belly. We're sure about
she's pregnant.
That, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she just had a baby back in May? So she got pregnant again over Christmas, and now she's already showing again?
Bitch better have my money. That's all I gotta say.
One of the Super Bowl reps confirmed it before. So.
I mean, hell, that's how she started. And that, I mean, you got to have a lot of money to have a kid. You know what's crazy though? I mentioned sports and then we ended on Rihanna. I believe if you would have put $50 on Bitch Better Have My Money, you would be $1,000 richer. The odds of that time being the first were crazy.
Wow, I didn't even realize that prop. Damn.
Yeah, I believe the favorite was the
Lights.
Yeah, Lights. Which she did sing. I mean, everyone knew Umbrella.
She sang everything. She did do good.
Yeah.
It was efficient. Back to that word. Everything about
very solid halftime show.
It was definitely in sync. Everything, and
no, it wasn't in sync. It was Rihanna.
It's true.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That was a good one. I liked it.
Man, Backstreet Boys. Look at these guys trying to make me.
I'm sorry. I'll go again. I'm sorry.
Encore. No. Speaking of music, I think it's time for us to all have some quiet time, some night lights, maybe some more alcohol if you guys aren't ready. I mean, Travis Kelce wanted to continue the party, so if that's what you're into. But I got to work in the morning. These guys were gracious with their time. I'm gonna have one more celebratory cup of coffee just because I'm a crazy man, guys. But after that, I am gonna go to bed. Coffee doesn't affect me the way it does some people. It's weird. I'll get into that some other day. Good night.
Have a good night,
Night.
everyone.